Boy, do I love the smell of patch notes in the morning. Here we are today. Strap yourselves in, keep your arms and legs inside the ride at all times, because we're going to get a bit rambly here today, folks. No doubt at points. But yeah, 5.0 patch notes have been officially released. I actually have not seen these, despite me having access to the early access build for some time. I've experienced some of this, but let's take a look now, drill down, and see what's actually going on here. So obviously you've got the full DLC, you've talked at length about that. Epidemius is free LC, and stability and gameplay performance improvements, always nice. To see some bug fixing and various things there. Exploit fixes, always nice. Lore of Life has new audio-visual overhaul, which is just fantastic. Nurgle army point generation, I've also talked at length about this in other videos. Definitely works better for campaign, needs refinement for multiplayer because it just feels bad, especially in land battles. Yeah, homing projectile refinement. Basically, homing projectile abilities like Arrows of Kurnos should now stop completely overkilling a single target and should now kind of spread their damage across a multi-model unit much better. So that is pretty nice to see. Pursuit behavior, this is something that I've always found a little bit odd in Total War Warhammer 3, is that pursuing units don't actually do very much damage, and they don't actually engage very much. Well, because apparently only 35% of chasing unit was allowed to engage, basically. Now this sort of limitation has been removed, so chasing routing units should be much more effective and consistent, as it should be in a Total War game. Some new attributes. Slayer. All Slayer units can have their weapon strength reduced, which is quite good and relevant in the Nurgle matchup, obviously. Directional Shield. This applies to the Steam Tank for now. I don't think any other single entities are getting this for the time being, but there probably will be text and other things introduced later on to unlock it for various other factions. We'll see, but it's a full 1.0, which means 100% missile block chance from the front. Applies to small arms fire, like guns and crossbows. Handguns, that is. 0.5, so that's 50% from the side, and 0.1 from the rear. So still a 10% missile block chance from the rear, but definitely do not want to be taking shots from behind, as I have learned in a couple of battles very painfully. Ballistic plating, this isn't on anything, I think, baseline in multiplayer. It's only available through techs in campaign, so that's good, but does give missile block chance to artillery shots, basically. Applies to all types of projectiles, heroic missiles, artillery, apart from magic missiles or spell-based bombardments. So it's interesting, if you are facing, let's say in campaign, there's a tech for the Dwarfs where you can unlock a formation that actually gives your shielded infantry units ballistic plating, which is hilarious. But apparently if you're facing against that in campaign, you notice they do go into those formations. I don't know if the AI can't even use them, but and that's how you know to take them down. Spell-based bombardments or magic missiles. Nice to see. Invulnerable and Cannot Die already existed, but they've been separated and kind of given unique behaviors. Invulnerable, you don't take any HP damage. Cannot Die, the entities do take HP damage, but cannot be killed. They'll remain at 1 HP until the effect runs out, and then they'll obviously be killed unless they've been healed. By the next attack that hits them. But anyway, yes, regeneration rates. This is something I haven't really highlighted too much in my videos. I've talked a little bit about it, but this health and healing breakdown, quite useful now. Shows the regeneration rate, healing cap, healing power, and all the same for barrier as well, which is nice to see when fighting against Tzeentch or other similar factions that get barrier in campaign. Lazy health bars. This is already a feature I think that existed. I think they've just now extended the time frame, and it's actually useful to know because there are certain leadership modifiers that will affect this within, given time frames. So I have to look and see what the damage taken recently, right, means exactly. And I believe this is something you can perhaps customize. We'll have to check on the in-game settings, but yeah, because basically there's like, I don't remember the exact numbers, I'd have to check the database and see, but I think it's like every damage over 5, 10, 15, something like that, right? There's like a few different time breakdowns where if you take a certain percentage of a unit's HP damage during that short period of time, they'll suffer an additional leadership debuff, so it is actually useful, especially if it's customizable, maybe to be able to set at one of those midpoint parameters, just to be able to kind of know, like, okay, this effect is starting to run down. The leadership effects from that shock damage are going to be lessened. Maybe mildly useful, but still nice to see those visual updates. UI updates also separating out passive abilities, unit attributes, resistances, active abilities, all that good stuff. Domination mode changes. Don't cover domination on this channel too much, but there's something here. The timers on the capture points now just unlock immediately, which is great. And ticket limit is now configurable in custom lobbies, also fantastic. So you can do shorter games. It's one of my biggest criticisms, honestly, of domination. I might try my hand at some like shortened, extremely kind of truncated domination games with like half ticket limits, and obviously with the instant point unlocks, that's going to change things as well. Maybe you can get a little bit more of a land battle balance. I'll have to look into domination a little bit more and see. I think it would be nice to be able to customize, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, it's been a long time, to be able to customize the funds for the main pool and reinforcements like kind of separately, so you could even set up, like, ideally for me, it would be much better if it was just, like a land battle with some very limited reinforcements, basically, right? So you have the majority of your funds front-loaded with just a very small kind of sidebar of units you can summon in over time. Anyway, interesting to see. They've also removed a bunch of the crappy maps from the pool. Hopefully they'll be adding more maps soon, because, the map pool is quite sad for domination. Another big reason, one of the reasons why I don't personally showcase it too much. It gets very repetitive. Obviously you have, like, the map mods and everything, but still. Races and balance. Okay, so now we're getting into the meat of it here. We'll start with abilities. Across the board, Creative Assembly has buffed abilities that give spell mastery for the most part, and you'll see that through a lot of these here. Mistwalker's Barrage, which is Eltharian's kind of unique ability, gives like a little AoE damage around him, has been buffed. This, combined with the Griffin HP buffs, means that, Eltharian might be quite solid in this next patch. I haven't really tried him out a lot. It's not a high elf main, but no doubt going to be inundated with replays from Ryder Rohan in the next day or two of him giving it a go. So we'll definitely watch for that all together. Determined Death Blow for the Slayers and Extremely Daring Death Blow have all just kind of been reworked a little bit here. Give some different stats, be largely better for the most part. And especially considering Slayers can't have their weapon strength reduced, right? Like wounds on a Slayer single entity means they'll just get more powerful over time as they take more and more damage. It's quite scary, to be honest. Ballistics calibration here can now be targeted at a friendly unit's from a distance, which is great because dwarf characters are super slow on foot, and they didn't give them a gyro mount, unfortunately. But you can now see that there's it's castable at a range and has a nice big area of effect as well. All that fun stuff. Accuracy wasn't really doing anything meaningful in this particular example, so it was removed. Okay. Now moving on to items. They didn't really do anything for the legendary items for Dwarfs and Empire. And I do think there's intention, I could be wrong about this, so I probably shouldn't say anything, but hopefully we can pressure Creative Assembly to give updates maybe in a mid-patch, even a 5.1 to, like, some of Ungrim or Thorgrim's legendary items that really only have campaign effects. It would be nice to see some active effects applied to them as well, so they would have uses in multiplayer and give those lords more flavor and more different utility, kind of help differentiate them and give you more reason to actually bring them. Because right now you pretty much just take Thorek, and for the Empire, I mean, if you're trying to cheap out, you probably take Boris, or else just take Elspeth, and that's it. Mostly, I mean, Carl's still there also, but yeah, maybe Marcus or Balthasar in certain matchups. Again, maybe, but it would be great if their items were reworked. Unfortunately, they were not. Let's look for that in the future. Anyway, here, Blood Statuette of Spite. It's one of a couple nerfs on Slans, I think. Its usages has been reduced. Let's see here. Yeah, again, power, spell mastery. I mean, abilities and items being buffed. Skull of Katam, I'd have to look. I think this is maybe available to 1 or 2 Chaos characters. Might be a little bit too strong. Going up to 120% spell mastery is insane. But a big one that I kind of just glossed over immediately is the Greater Arcane Conduit, which a lot of the high-level legendary caster characters have in multiplayer, is just getting a small straight buff, which is nice. So for like Mazdamundi, Marathi, right? I think Tzeentch boy also. Kairos has it as well, perhaps. Anyway, let's see here. Yeah, some of the runes getting reworked for dwarfs as well. I think largely only applies in campaign, but still, there's something there for them. Flames of Asgore may now target siege vehicles. It's kind of cool, but not wildly useful. Some other duration adjustments here for some various abilities. Vengeance of Spirits is now correctly using strong versus multi-entity damage scaling instead of strong versus single target damage scaling, which basically made it like some insane Final Transmutation of Doom. So I haven't actually tested it out that much to see if it's usable now, and by usable I mean unbannable, because I believe it was banned before, but should be good. Omen of Spirits also here. Again, Spellmaster, anything that gives Spellmastery is going to be getting some buffs. Let's see. Blue Fire of Tzeentch. So this is a pretty significant one. Now the penetration is stopped by medium units instead of large, so I'd have to look at what exactly counts as large. I think like regular standard size cavalry probably counts as large, and then other things kind of in between infantry and cavalry. There are some things in that area would count as medium, or maybe infantry themselves, certain infantry count as medium, so penetration is going to be lessened of blue fire, basically, especially against like cavalry-sized targets potentially. Again, I haven't tested this out that much myself, but it seems like a slight nerf to blue fire, which was probably warranted. Dwellers has been reworked, so now each individual branch emerging from the ground is its own zone of damage. I haven't really tested this out a lot. I've been hearing mixed reports about it being either too strong or useless. In the few battles I've had it used against me, it didn't seem to do a lot, but we'll see. Previously, Dwellers was one large single zone of damage. Now every branch knock units around appropriately, as well as dealing a load of damage. So interesting. I think it'll maybe be a little bit kind of RNG based, as maybe bombardments often are. But yeah, let us know how you get on with it, and we'll need to make adjustments. Okay, so it sounds like Creative Assembly wants me to murder some things with it, so we'll give it a go here in some upcoming videos myself. Yes. Murderous Mastery now gives armor-piercing missile damage, which for some reason it doesn't before. Maybe it was just base missile damage. It's a little bit odd. But anyway. Cataclysm spells, not wildly applicable to multiplayer, so we'll mostly just skip over that. They have been reworked in many ways, though. Let's see here. Giver of Arcane Glory, Spell Mastery, again, increased. That's for the Tzeentchian War Shrine. By Our Blood, this is a big one, so a net nerf for all of Kislev, just -5 seconds off of By Our Blood, which isn't insanely huge, but it is definitely a nerf. I mean, certainly for game modes like Domination, but just a general By Our Blood was quite good in a number of situations, so there's a nice little nerf there. Gyrocopter bombs, we've seen, have been reworked if you watch my videos about them, so be sure to check that out. Anyway, moving on to faction balance changes specifically. Beastmen here, they get Pestigores. Yep, that's it. Beastmen characters also now can get the Lone Wolf trait in campaign. That's fantastic. Just some, minor things for campaign. Not a lot there. For Bretonnia, King Lewin actually and the Hippogriffs, they had an HP buff before, now getting a slight HP nerf actually to bring them, I think, just below Empire Griffins. They do get a little bit of armor for Henri le Massif. More cost increases for Grail Guardians, Hippogriff Knights, Grail Knights in multiplayer. No performance nerfs, though, which is interesting. I think probably a lot of factions, or a lot of rule sets now, I think, are adopting a cost-based model, where you can only take a certain X number of costs, of Grail tier units. So I think largely with the costs as they are set up right now, you can maybe only take 1 or max 2 in some situations. But yeah, definitely interesting. Dark Elves here. Blades of the Blood Queen now have immune to psychology, like regular Hargoness. That was a oversight, so that's great. Let's see here. Replaced Firewall moving for Brimstone guns with causes fear from changeable parts. Okay, odd. Yeah, so for Dwarfs here, multiplayer changes. A little bit of cost adjustments for some of their characters. Again, no item or ability changes really. They're just getting a lot of new stuff. Trollhammer torpedoes also been significantly reworked alongside gyrocopters. Again, I've talked about these a little bit in videos here and there. I haven't featured Trollhammers specifically. I do have a replay I'm going to probably be recording later today for uploading later this week about Trollhammers specifically, kind of a unit highlight of them. They are much better now and extremely scary. And if anyone was worried about losing the anti-large gyros, the Trollhammer torpedo Iron Drakes more than make up for it. Yeah, gyros also being reworked. I'm a big fan of. Some people didn't like, but I think once you actually get your hands on them and try them out in practice, you will quite like them as well. Yeah, flame cannons also, that's there. Moving on, Grand Cathay. All Jade Warrior units have had just -10 armor, which is nice. It's not huge, but it is something, just a little bit to help them perform that much less cost effectively. And I mean, over time, -10 armor, a bunch, full front line of units will definitely make a difference. So it's nice to see that there. Greenskins, Squig Herds were way too cheap, so they get a +50 cost increase. Warranted, same for Boarboy Biggins. Stone Troll Mass did get increased though, which is a nice buff. Also, big one, huge one. Feral Wyverns now available for Greenskins to use in multiplayer, and they have a 1600 recruitment cost, which is a lot. It's a lot for what you're getting. The stats are not incredible for the cost, but basically you're paying a premium for a flying single entity that can potentially help screen out powerful flying shooting units in, say, the Dwarf matchup or others. Yeah. There we go. Let's see here. High Elves, yep. As mentioned many times, Griffin's getting an HP buff does apply to all Griffin High Elf mounts as well, so the Prince, Princess, and Eltharion should be that much more effective. Eltharion in particular, oh, the Princess also going up to 80 armor, as it should be. Excuse me. Spring allergies, unfortunately, still rolling here as various flowers decide to bloom in succession. Anyway, yeah, Eltharion, 6600 HP with the Mistwalker Barrage buff should be pretty decent. I still would like to see some changes to Lore of High Magic, just to give it some buffs, because it's largely not very good. It should be like one of the best Lores of Magic in the game, technically, but it's really not. So, let's hope for that more in the future. Let's see here. So, Khorne, Bloodthirsters been given 8 morale, and this is one thing you'll see across all demonic units. They're just giving them small leadership bumps to help them not die of SADS. Sudden, what is it? What did someone said it in a comment? It was like sudden onset, or yeah, I don't know, sudden attack of demonic sadness or something. Yes, some cost adjustments across the board for Khorne as well. It's good because they were one faction that was suffering pretty badly, and this also helps Warriors of Chaos because buying the Mark of Khorne for any applicable units now costs less. So, yeah, you got just -50 costs across many units here, -200 costs straight up off the Chaos Lord of Khorne just on a regular steed. So, yeah, the War Beast Chariot actually goes up in cost, okay. And, yeah, some other adjustments here. A little bit of a melee attack defense buff for the Lord of Khorne on the Juggernaut mount. Yeah, some nice little buffs here and there for Khorne. When they give sort of faction-wide small adjustments like this, the net effect can often be pretty large. And I haven't played Khorne a lot in this patch. I played a little bit here and there against them and as them. Not very much, but definitely seems like they will be better in this upcoming patch, even if just ever so slightly more cost-effective. Being able to get more units on the field does help them in many ways, because that's really all they got is their units, and they should be some of the most cost-effective, powerful units for their cost. You see maybe even 10 leadership here for a lot of the like Bloodletters, lower tier units maybe. And very interesting. I love to see Fleshhounds can no longer brace. I didn't realize Fleshhounds could brace. I think we all learned something today. I don't know, maybe one of you out there was like eating charges with your Fleshhounds, but that's not how you should use them anyway. Yeah, the morale buffs for demons across the board is nice to see. So, definitely it seems like Creative Assembly is aware of what some of the issues are and are trying to take some steps at least to address some of the broad issues in the game. Kislev has received some nerfs, so Kislev Warriors just get a weapon strength decrease straight up. No cost decrease, but still nice to see. Armored Cussars also a missile damage nerf, is ever so slight. Winged Lancers also get their cost increased to 1,000. Wow, so they, rather than decreasing their performance, they really want Winged Lancers to stand above something like Empire Knights, or even like Silver Helms, to be honest. But okay, Things in the Woods also getting plus 25 cost. That's fine. All around some small nerfs, but again, like large set, or even a small set of, relatively small set of small nerfs can have a pretty big impact if it's targeted well. So we'll see how this ends up playing out in practice, but definitely looks interesting. Lizardmen here also get some nerfs. As mentioned, the Slawns are getting nerfs across the board, which is good. Slawns are the best casters in the game in many ways, and the fact that you can take a wide selection of Lures of Magic with Greater Arcane Conduit and some powerful other support damage abilities just made the Slawns way too powerful and often way too hard to kill if Lizardman player was playing correctly. So I agree with this nerf. Skink Cohorts and Skink Skirmishers also got a slight cost increase as well. It's appropriate considering their power level increase from previous patches with their new sort of abilities. Being able to cause fear, especially making them immune to fear, shores up one of their main weaknesses, which is leadership. Yeah. Girl Cold Ones also get a cost increase. Dread Saurian, the spacing on all Dread Saurians has been fixed so that they can be placed closer to other units and drag out formations. Hopefully this means they'll also be able to consistently get more hits, because a lot of the times it seems like the Dread Saurians were getting like boxed out in weird ways by like small entities of their own armies. Anyway, this should just make the Dread Saurians a little more consistent in use. Haven't tried it again, but it should be good. Let's see here. Norska. Norska gets a nerf. And that's it. Thank the gods. Yep. Ice Trolls. They get a mass increase, but weapon strength, like -1 AP, +1 base damage. Okay. And a small cost increase. There we go. That's great. Nurgle. So, now all characters mounting a palanquin, other than Kugath, obviously, because he's so huge, now can hide in a forest. Chariot mount got a little bit cheaper. Demonic leadership buffs. The Beast of Nurgle also now is immune to flanking, which is interesting, and just has a straight-up significant buff with +10 melee attack and +4 charge bonus. Beasts of Nurgle, in my experience in campaign, are a little bit better. I haven't used them much in multiplayer, but they seem solid. Yeah, demonic leadership buffs are nice as well. Skaven don't get anything for multiplayer. Slaanesh gets some cost adjustments as well. Cultist Slaanesh also gets the Mark of Slaanesh, which is nice. Strider and the psychology portion of it, at least. Leadership buffs, again, should help Slaanesh just as much as any other faction, but Demonettes and, in general, Slaanesh demons in particular, because of their low leadership, were some of the most vulnerable to SADS. They're just dying outright to it, so this will be a significant buff for them, I think. Demonettes going up to 75 leadership, Exalted Demonettes 80. Yeah, solid overall. For the Empire, some general updates, some campaign updates, unit updates here, all in campaign stuff. General of the Empire now gets a silver shield. It's fancy, ornate, emblazoned shield. Now gives a 55% missile block chance rather than just 35%, even up to the Pegasus, which is pretty good. I believe that probably applies to Boris as well. Maybe not. Boris just gets health increase on a Griffin, as do all Griffin mounted characters, and +5 armor as well. Carl significantly goes up to 6,800, which is a decent amount. He can definitely tangle much better, and of course, healing being percentage-based will benefit him even more now with a higher base HP pool. Amber Griffin also getting an HP buff, one of my favorite characters personally, so I have to say, quite happy about this. Having already used the Amber Griffin to good effect, definitely feels better. Even if only just slightly, but 1,000 HP extra does make a difference quite a bit. This Grim Resolve for Witch Hunter gives AoE immune to psychology for not too much cost. The Witch Hunter also accusations pretty decent, gives you another reason to take him if you have the extra funds. I'm quite a big fan, actually. And then, yeah, the state troops, the Elector Count state troops, didn't really get any balance changes over time. Well, I should say they missed out on a lot of balance changes that were given to their base units. So now, in many cases, those have been adjusted and given some other effects. They're still not available in regular multiplayer, but that's fine. Outriders have had a full rework. I've talked about them at length in other videos. Yeah, need to do some testing on the release version and see if their accuracy is decent or if they're still consistently firing like 80 to 90% of the shots over the heads of their enemies. Yeah, Outrider grenade launchers also get a cost increase, which is fine. They were one of the best units for Empire before if you use them appropriately. But all War Wagon variants now visually use the Empire handguns to match their firing animations. They also get a nerf in their armor, speed, and charge speed. Steam Tank has had a significant rework, brand new model and animations. Yeah, the time and resources to revisit it, bring it up to the standards, was just better spent just remaking it from the ground up. So, yes, shout out to Chris indeed, because he did a great job. The Steam Tank is awesome. Now has a wider turning arc, but no longer use the ram attack animations, instead opting to jet blasts of hot steam out the side. Steam tanks. Yes, indeed. They can now fire on the move, and the engineer commander sits on the top, shoots his pistol, or in the case of the Lord, he has the grenade launcher, which gives a considerable extra explosive attack. Quite nice. The turret and commander will also keep firing if the whole cannon runs out of ammo, so they do have infinite ammo, which is quite strong. Tank itself also benefits from the new missile block, all that stuff. Yeah, it's very, 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 very good. Does have perfect vigor removed, but still, I would say overall absolutely a net buff, and just in practice it feels much better to use. Yeah. Moving on now, Tomb Kings, their chariots. Tomb Prince on the chariot gets more expensive. Why? Just why? No one knows. But some minor leadership buffs to certain units. Chosen the Gods, Necrosphinx, the Sphinx Lusek, rather. So some of the regiments for now get slight leadership buffs as well. Tzeentch, let's see here. Some cost reduction on the Chaos Lord. Again, it seems like they're skipping the base Chaos Lords across the board. Cost reductions, nice to see. Although I don't think Tzeentch needed it necessarily. Zangors have their single-player recruitment adjusted to reflect the new multiplayer costs and tier. Let's see here. Yeah, leadership buffs to demonic units. That's mostly it for Tzeentch. Vampire counts get nothing. Warriors of Chaos, leadership buff to Sarth, and the adjustments to Chaos Lord cost on the chariot. Well, again, okay. But yeah, and they also get Vile Trolls and Rot Knights. So, Wood Elves. Orion can now shoot 360. I didn't catch if there was a fix there or anything, if he can now shoot while moving like he's intended to. We'll have to see, but potentially a buff there. I was actually having a discussion about single entities in general, and I do think Orion could probably do with just a straight HP and weapon strength buff, similar to what was given to like Griffins or Giants, just to make him, I think he's kind of, his power level has kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. It's kind of been power crept out, and certainly him and Durthu, I think, could definitely use with some adjustments to make them a lot more viable and scary, would make the Wood Elves a lot more interesting and stronger. But anyway, yeah, let's see here, just if there's anything else really in multiplayer. Players are unable to ready up for a custom battle tooltip. Okay. Let's see, yeah, just fixing a lot of broken things, bugs and audio and UI and everything else. So that's pretty much it. Seems fairly solid overall. The leadership buff to demonic units is nice to see, even if they don't want to change demonic instability. That's also a way of addressing the problem, kind of in a way. But it does work to a degree, and just in my, again, very limited experience, demonic units do feel a little bit better in this patch. They still do suffer from SADS to a degree, but it's better somewhat. And you know, those small, like, successive nerfs to Kislev should help bring them in line, as well as it fixes to their magic. Also love to see some small nerfs to Yeah, it's Cathay, small buffs for Khorne, so overall, mostly positives for this patch. There's only a couple of head scratchers here, and more so omissions, right? And there's always, with a game now the size being that it is, there's always 100 omissions we can call out of things that probably should get updated but haven't yet been. That's what future patches are for, after all, so look for those. That's all for today. Hopefully you were able to bear through this very long rambling, holy cow, 30 minutes. Yeah, I gotta get off here. We'll see you later, guys. Thanks again. See you next time.